What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha. Today we are talking about the Nike Zoom Fly 4 after 50 plus miles and answering some of the questions that you guys in the comments section have brought up to me regarding this shoe and some other things that I've kind of noticed and whatnot. So before we get into it, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed to the channel and watching this content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Without further ado, let's send it. Okay, now that we got the intro out of the way, here are the specs for this shoe, if you forgot them. These are the specs for the shoe in size 8.5, which is what I've got right here. Let's first and foremost just kind of show you what the outsoles slash the bottoms of the shoes look like, because that's just what I do on this channel, and based on my running stride, it's kind of an important thing to showcase. So, here is the bottom of the left shoe in the midfoot region, in the heel, and then here's, of course, the right shoe, which is always the fun culprit in the running world for me. And yeah, I guess we could just start off with the right shoe. So as you can probably guess, 50 plus miles in, the outsole is holding off pretty well. There's no major issues with it so far. Again, if you do watch the channel, you probably already know my pain points and areas that I like to watch on the shoe are typically in this outer area of the shoe. And of course, for the people who have not been watching this channel, there's just a couple little background tips as to why I'm looking at this particular area and maybe some of why the mileage is working the way it is. So again, I do have a very odd running form in some cases where this exterior area of the shoe does kind of lean as like my striking point, but it hasn't been like that for too much time right now, only because again, I have a self-diagnosed fractured fibula that I'm kind of working through. And I haven't been able to run the exact same way I usually do in this particular shoe, or just any shoe for that matter. And it makes things a lot more interesting. And of course, I do a lot more barefoot running just to, you know, appease the pain that's kind of in that area. Except we're almost 6 weeks in, and if I was a good boy, I would probably have a perfectly healed bone. But because I'm really smart, I have a room temperature IQ in Kelvin for, you know, taking care of my body. Basically, I've been running like almost, I think, 3 or 4 weeks after the fact, and it's just been kind of maybe hindering my recovery process. But at the same time, there's not as much pain as there is just like achiness and just some kind of like weird, I guess, like tenderness in some areas, but whatever. We're not here to talk about my foot, we're just here to talk about the fact that the shoe so far, even with this fibula issue I've got going on, has been really awesome. It's been really solid and really stable. And that's pretty much all I can ask for out of this shoe, because again, it's not directly advertised as a racing shoe. It can be treated as such. It could be like an everyday racer if you want to take it for that tempo threshold run. It's okay for like the easy run. It just, in my opinion, I don't think you should be doing easy, like, you know, 9-minute, 10-minute per mile pace, maybe maximum like 8-minute per mile everyday runs in a type of shoe like this, only because one, they're typically unstable. Two, you should probably have a shoe that's a lot more, I guess, recovery friendly, something a lot more forgiving than something with a carbon plate that's going to make you smack the ground, force your calf to work a little bit harder to get this kind of like rebound, you know, spring off from the shoe. And I think just realistically, again, it's a carbon plate shoe using React. You should probably just consider this for your faster days. And yeah, that's kind of my take on that for the most part. So in terms of stability, so if we were to pick, for example, the low-hanging fruit here, such as the Alpha Fly, this is definitely a lot more stable and obviously a lot more differently built than the Alpha Fly, in the sense that there's no air pockets, there isn't no single carbon plate in this 4-foot area that's, you know, working in tandem with them. Rather, this shoe has a full-length carbon plate and is built more like the Vaporfly Next Percent. So, compared to the Tempo Next Percent, you can probably guess that this is a lot more stable, mostly because of the React foam that's on the shoe, because React is supposed to be a lot more, I guess, dense. It's supposed to be not as... You won't sink nearly as much in a React as you will in something like a Zoom X, but you're also not going to get like this awesome rebound effect that the Zoom X really has. So that's typically why something like the Alpha Fly, the Vaporfly Next Percent, and even to an extent the Tempo Next Percent are typically seen as the forerunners of Nike's racing brand shoes for the roads and not necessarily in the trails, I don't think. But yeah, that's why something like the Zoom Fly 4 is seen more as the trainer for the Vaporfly Next Percent. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing here. Of course, let's talk about the upper after 50 plus miles. Again, no sign of any tear or any sort of wear on the top. I did get a question on this front though, compared to the Zoom Fly 3. And now, I've had the Zoom Fly 3 for like a couple of days back in 2019 leading into 2020. I just never really used the shoe to its true potential because there was a paranoia at the time that if I was running in a shoe other than the racing shoe, my foot would break again because I was worried about that. So I was training in a Vaporfly Next Percent for Tokyo 2020 at the time. But the question is whether the liner inside the shoe was about the same I think, tightness as the Zoom Fly 4. And if I remember this correctly, the Zoom Fly 3 was pretty loose as a shoe, and that was one of the things I remember initially not liking about it. And the Zoom Fly 4 definitely has a lot more of a tight fit than I remember, and it almost feels kind of like the Vaporfly Next Percent with some caveats, and one of those, of course, is because this mesh upper is not like vaporweave necessarily, it's going to like hug your foot a little bit differently. But there is a tightness to this shoe that I think exists that wasn't on the Vaporfly 3. Now there is one little thing that's going on, and this is particularly in my left foot, and I don't know if this is just because there's like a micrometer difference in like my foot build between the shoes, but if I tie my left foot wrong in a certain way, what happens is the shoelaces in this particular area as they lock down really kind of give me a foot ache, and I have to either keep this loose and tighten this area of the shoe pretty nicely, or I tighten these areas a little bit more so this area doesn't put a lot of pressure on the top of my foot. So, that being said, it's something interesting that I was observing that, you know, with the shoe tying the way it does, it could have this, like, weird kind of strain, kind of soreness on the top of the, you know, your foot, and it was just weird. It was something I observed the first couple of days of running with the shoe. It does happen and it comes back occasionally, but I'm like pretty conscious of not over tying my left foot. And even so, my left foot doesn't have a whole lot of like, I guess, wiggle room where I don't feel like I'm going to fly out of the shoe out of instability, more or less. I do pay attention a lot more to the right foot, however, because of the way my foot does land when we're like in peak condition, right? Because I remember this in... oh man, what shoe was it? I'm going to leave the name of it here because it's not coming to mind. But I used it back in the Chicago Marathon 2018. I don't think it had a carbon plate in it. And I remember racing in it, and during the Chicago Marathon, I took one weird step, and it was built in the same way with this kind of like React, where I did feel almost something like my ankle just kind of cave out. It wasn't necessarily a sprain, but it was extremely uncomfortable, and it was due to the fact that this outsole bottom build for this shoe has like not a whole lot of width room, so if you take a weird step, the React will react and kind of cause you to have this kind of like you know, either inner or outer ankle, I guess, like, I'm not gonna say sprain, but it is going to kind of like bend in those directions if you let it. So there's not a whole lot of, I guess, dig into the shoe that would kind of save you from that sort of impact, kind of like maybe a Mach 4 or like a 1080 version 11 that has a slightly wider like forefoot midsole area here. So those are like the two major things I'm looking at. So other than that, so far the Zoom Fly 4 as a daily trainer, as a daily, is not quite the shoe I thought it was going to be. It is just a little bit more of expressive, a lot faster than I would normally say like a 1080 version 11 or a Mach 4 is supposed to be. But as a shoe that I would take on a slightly faster session, especially like once this foot gets better and I really start pushing the limits, this is going to be a really good shoe for those particular runs. And I know when I take it on treadmill sessions and I try to bump the treadmill to the numbers I was hitting previously, the shoe will definitely go with me, and like I don't feel like I'm cardiovascularly like exhausted, more or less because I'm trying to keep that fitness as well in the meantime. But it's not like I'm feeling any sort of like resistance from the shoe. Like if I'm pushing the shoe, it's gonna go with me, and I can like see it in the reflection of, you know, the glass when I'm running on a treadmill, that the shoe is not like, it doesn't look like it's struggling to keep up. Like the plate is there, I'm getting the spring I'm looking out of, like looking for from it. And that's kind of where I'm staying with the shoe. Like, it's doing exactly what I think it's supposed to be doing. It's just a little bit above the the mark of what I wanted the shoe to do previously. I guess this just ultimately means that like the 1080 version 11 currently is going to be like my daily / recovery trainer, and the Zoom Fly 4 is going to be replacing the Tempo Next percent in my lineup as this like everyday racer tempo threshold kind of workout shoe, and then the Alpha Fly still remains as like my race day shoe for that matter, until I get like another Tempo Next percent. Then I may experiment with it on race days, or it may have to replace the Zoom Fly 4, depending on the conditions and how I feel and so on and so forth. So if you guys got any other questions with the shoe, you know, just leave them in the comments below. I'll answer them in the next video, or I'll try to answer them in the comment section. But so far so good at 50 plus miles. Next time we talk about the shoe, it will be at 100 plus miles, and I hope to have more road miles than treadmill miles with this particular thing, because again, there's a lot of good stuff with this shoe that I do want to get into. But the trick, of course, is I'm the problem here, and I just want to recover as soon as possible to start being able to put in those miles and just see how things go before the snow kind of kicks in, and then we kind of have to go into Nike Shield season, which is also going to be exciting, so I got to do a review on that shoe a year later, I suppose. So thanks again for watching this video. I'll see you guys in the next one.